I sit in my room holding this pair of running shoes. Just weeks ago, these super shoes were pounding the pavement in Chicago, carrying me through a third 26.2-mile journey filled with discovery, reflection, and pain. Now, back home, I find myself staring blankly at an empty computer screen with so many thoughts and lessons bubbling up, urging me to bring them to life. This is what I learned from the Chicago Marathon. The first is that improvement comes from consistency. I myself have been training for the marathon distance for a little over a year now, and my third marathon result time is vastly different to my first, almost an hour in difference actually. And I feel like I've improved my marathon time by an hour due to being consistent. It was a realization that all of those 28-kilometer plus long runs that I completed in this past year have allowed my endurance to improve as a result. And it's not only from doing all of this running where I've seen this improvement come from. There have been other factors that have contributed. This has been getting the right amount of sleep each night to allow my body to recover, ensuring I adhere to my nutrition, so that includes fueling myself for my runs, but also before and afterwards to ensure I fuel my body ready to go before the next session. And something that has been so important to me is going to the gym week in and week out, and also doing bodyweight exercises and even using my exercise bands to do a bit more strength training after my sessions to ensure I maintain my body in its peak condition. It's a process that I've learned to love, and now completing my third marathon training, realizing that it provides such a routine and structure to my weeks that allows me to thrive. In a way now, my life kind of conforms around my marathon training. Next is that marathons are a mental game, and I feel like anyone who signs themselves up for a marathon knows what they're getting themselves into and realize that it is going to be quite a physical battle. Though, as I reflect on completing my third marathon, it's arguably just as much of a mental game as it is a physical one. From the half marathon point through to the finishing line, it was a constant mental negotiation that was happening in my head, arguing with myself if I should ease up before heading into the corner or to even just take a short walking break during the aid stations. And then getting past that 30-kilometer point, realizing I'd only had about just over an hour left of running, but also my mind as well as my body pleading me to take it just a little easier. It's funny how you forget all your problems that happen in your life as you're completing the final stages of a marathon. Like, my only goal there was to cross the finishing line at those final points. It's made me realize too, upon reflecting on the Chicago Marathon, that I probably didn't push myself to my complete physical limits. In a way, I feel like I haven't done as much mental work to allow myself to push a little deeper in order to improve my time or my performance. However, it's a good learning practice and gauge to see where exactly that red line is in the marathon distance, because I don't think I've quite found my red line just yet, besides ending up in the medical tent after my first one in New York last year. Then those final 2 kilometers in the race where I was getting more frustrated than anything, just wanting the race to be done with, knowing I had just 10 more minutes to go, having that ultimate feeling of satisfaction hit my body after crossing the finishing line, realizing that the marathon wasn't the hardest part. It was actually all of those training sessions that had led me to that part in crossing the finishing line that was the hardest. Upon further reflection, realizing that race strategies are just a guide for me, I went in with the original plan to negative split the second half of the marathon in Chicago when I really had no gauge or bearings on what the course would actually entail. I feel like over the course of my marathon journey, but also documenting it on YouTube, I've kind of fallen into a trap where I've become a little ambitious with my running goals when I've still got so much to improve on. This was quite evident in the final 5 kilometers in Chicago, seeing my times and my pace just start to increase little by little. In the final 12 kilometers of the race, it was no longer a matter of checking my watch to see how my pace was going, rather focusing on my goal of completing the marathon over the time goal that I'd set myself. In those moments, it was allowing my body to hurt and grind through the pain cave. Although I fell just short of my goal of running a sub 3 hour 30 marathon, it was a good lesson gauging what my expectations going into the race were compared to the realities of running the marathon itself. And it's a reminder to be kind to myself and to my body We don't suddenly need to be hitting all of these running goals at once. It's a long process and it's going to take time. It takes a village to run a marathon. Throughout training for my first marathon last year, I received overwhelming support from the Indigenous Marathon Foundation, my family, friends, and community getting around me to train for my first ever marathon. And it was exactly the same when training for my third marathon, knowing I had 3 other people on the other side of the country also training for the same race that I was. Although we didn't check in super regularly with each other, it was still knowing I had them in my corner whenever things started feeling tough out there in the training. But also, having the opportunity for my partner to come over to Chicago to experience what an international major marathon looks like. If it wasn't for her putting up with me getting up at ridiculous hours in the morning, regularly washing all of my clothes throughout the week so they were ready for the next session, and even cooking me food when I needed it, I wouldn't have got to the marathon starting line. It was also appreciating how much time and energy our biggest supporters put into our crazy endeavors like completing all these world major marathons. I won't lie, I myself get very pig-headed and stubborn, often overreacting to the smallest inconveniences or getting a little impatient when in reality, I should be savoring the moments like having my partner travel over to the other side of the world to watch me run my third marathon, or having my parents call me from across the other side of the country to check in to see how I'm going. I believe this is something that I still need to work on as a runner, realizing that my marathon aspirations also have impacts on the relationships that I have with my loved ones. Having time before the marathon to spend it with my partner, but also afterwards getting to spend it with her as well as her mum, was a very valuable experience for me. After returning home from Chicago, it's made me realize I need to prioritize more time when training for my marathons towards my relationships. Life is short and we don't know how much time we have on this earth. The last thing that I learned after completing the Chicago Marathon is running marathons is my favorite way to travel and see the world. Don't get me wrong, I love to travel and be a tourist in other places of the world that I haven't seen before, but there was something that completing 2 international world major marathons that really scratched that travel bug in me. I realize now that I seem to enjoy exploring a city through running, getting to see new places, new people, and ultimately complete a race with thousands of other runners has made me appreciate how running can be one way of exploring the world. To conclude this section of the video, I know the World Major Marathons has some mixed reviews in the running community, but as someone who wasn't really keen on traveling outside of my home country in Australia, running and completing 2 international major marathons has really opened up my eyes to see how I can explore the world. It's an avenue that's really pushed me outside of my comfort zone, and even only completing 2 of the world majors so far, realizing how much as a person I've grown. It's also given me the hopes in achieving the elusive goal of Boston qualifying for the Boston Marathon race. I know running has got very popular since the pandemic, and for me, I was at a point last year where I started to feel things kind of plateau, and running then came into my life and opened up these possibilities of continuing this journey just to see how much I could improve as a runner. In a way, it's a medicine that I really didn't know how much I needed. And reflecting now, completing my third marathon, realizing how grateful I am that I continued my marathon journey after crossing the New York City Marathon line last year. And I'm so excited to see in 5 years how much I've improved as well. So there we have it, some things that I learned as a result of running the Chicago Marathon this year in 2024. Now, if you're watching up until this point of the video, I'm pretty confident that you're quite into your running too. So what's something that you've learned over the course of your running journey? Or it doesn't even have to be about running. What's something that you've learned or taken away from 2024 as well? Almost near the end of it. Keen to chat with you down in the comments below soon. Thank you so much for watching the video. Leave a like if you did enjoy today's video, and subscribe if you're keen for more content like this. YouTube also recommends watching this one of mine if you're keen for some more content. I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch up.